Hi everybody, I'm going to do this video for you to explain and go over the argument paper assignment. This is housed in our folder in Blackboard. It's the unit of study for research. You'll go over to the assignments unit of study, and then you'll pick the scholarly research and research assignments, click into that, and then go under assignments materials folder. We've done this in class before, so I know you know the routine for doing that. So this is going to be a research paper. It's going to be argumentative, meaning that you are going to have a purpose and persuasion for your reader, and you're going to be using persuasive tactics to convince them of your side of the argument. So basically, this is anytime you argue something, it's usually should or should not. Something should happen, or something should not be done, or should not happen. That probably should be reflected somehow in the phrasing of your thesis statement, and we'll go over that in just a second. The main, I guess, criteria for this is that you have 3 credible sources. In class, we've talked about the fact that I want you to have scholarly database sources, and I want you to use the JCC databases to get those. I do know that sometimes if you do Google research, you may fall upon something that is considered credible. For instance, Harvard University, Duke University, UNC hospitals, they might have websites that you could access through Google. You can also use Google Scholar, but in class we've talked about the fact that Google Scholar may charge for the articles, and you don't want to pay for anything because it is given for free through the JCC Library's databases. They pay the subscription fees for us to have access to those databases. So you do need to have 3 credible sources. I don't want to see anything that's too popular from Google, like something that would be more of a commercial website or a commercial site. You want to make sure that the sources that you're choosing, their main goal in giving the information is for academic research. So like I said, sometimes a Harvard or a Duke or a Carolina or another university or a well-renowned organization may have a website, and you fall upon something that was published or something that would be considered credible research. If you do choose one of those, I would really prefer that that maybe be one of the 3 sources, and the other 2 would be from the scholarly databases. You need to show in this paper that you understand how to do the scholarly research using the databases. So if you do have one that didn't come from the databases and the other 2 did, that would be acceptable, as long as that one that didn't come from the databases is credible, considered scholarly, and from a reputable site. You also want to make sure that it's not biased in any way. So you do need to, if you haven't already, start to work on your thesis statement. As we talked about in class, a thesis statement shows the controlling idea for the entire essay, and it's featured in the introduction at the end of the introduction. So if this is something that doesn't seem really familiar to you, go back to that first unit of study, that first week. We went over expectations for writing, for college writing, and I do have those PowerPoints there. You guys took a quiz on or quiz on each of the PowerPoints, and we went over it extensively in class. So if some of this seems not too familiar, go back and look at those PowerPoints and review the notes that hopefully you took in class. So let's look at this this thesis statement here, and I'm going to try to highlight it for you. Hopefully that'll work. So this is an example of a thesis statement. It's just maybe to help as a guide to writing your thesis statement. This one reads, JCC should update its technology because students have paid for the technology in their student fees. Students need updated technology to prepare them for the workforce, and updated technology would be a selling point to recruit new students. So if you notice, the main controlling idea is the should statement, and that's JCC should update its technology. So that's what is going to be proven throughout the essay, and that's what your research will speak to. It's what will be supported, and that's the main part of your essay and your research. But in this particular example, we see a list of sort of reasons why the technology should be updated. This is considered a blueprint style of listing the reasons in the thesis statement. This is most often done with 5-paragraph essays because the 3-body paragraphs center on 3 reasons why. And as you do more college writing and as you go up the different levels of your academic courses, you will not continue to do the 5-paragraph essay. We try to break that habit a little bit in English 111 because we want you to realize that you should not be stuck with this sort of classic model of just 5 paragraphs. Some research projects may require 10 paragraphs, some other ones might require 4, any number of paragraphs. Really, the point in writing for academic research or any kind of academic purpose is that you've proven that thesis, and then it's up to you as the writer and the researcher to determine how many paragraphs you need to do that. With the argumentative essay, we know that we need to have a refutation concession paragraph. So that sort of adds to our body paragraph, and that's not necessarily going to be outlined in this thesis statement. So I'd like to encourage you to maybe start to leave the listing in the thesis statement sort of behind. That is a model that's often used in high school English classes, and there is nothing wrong with that. It is definitely a classic way to learn how to write a thesis statement, but starting with 111, we want you to expand your tools. We want the toolbox that you're using in your academic classes to have varied choices, and so not all thesis statements will have this list. If you do it for this paper, I will not grade down harshly for it, but I would encourage you, strongly encourage you to consider not doing the list because you do need to break this habit. You're going to be viewed by your instructors as a more seasoned writer if you don't do the listing. But I'm showing you this here because I feel like we're going to start where you're most comfortable, and most of you have been accustomed to doing the listing in your thesis statement. If you go back to the unit of study on the process writing that we studied the first week of class, you'll see that I do have a handout in there for how to write a thesis statement, and I'm sure it's something we'll continue to talk about in class. But as you write this paper, you can certainly go back and see some samples of how to properly form and write your thesis statement. I will probably also drop in an additional video that you can watch if you choose to, if you're someone who doesn't feel super in control of writing the thesis statement. Sometimes those are challenging for some people. Okay, so I do have an outline here, and it's sort of a loose outline. It's something that's a little bit broad because I don't want to tell you what to write. I'm just trying to give you options on how to organize your paper. So we've talked at length in class about writing an introduction. Your thesis statement should come last in the introduction, and then you should start off broad with an attention grabber. Do not do a question. Do not do a quote. You need to just start out with something of interest to a wide range of readers. Try to get their attention, and then you'll slowly narrow that to your thesis statement. So a good introduction usually has, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 5 sentences. It's not a really long paragraph, and you shouldn't include a lot of research in your introduction because you're merely just introducing the idea to the reader. You're trying to get them interested so they'll continue to read your paper. There's an option in research writing, and you'll see this here. After the introduction, sometimes it's not a bad idea to include a background paragraph just to set up the reader for some basic knowledge and understanding of the topic. Sometimes topics are not, something that's common knowledge or something that a lot of people feel comfortable with. And so, you could certainly set up the essay with some background information. This is a place that you could include some statistics or some reasoning behind the interest in this topic. It is optional. You're not required to have a background paragraph, but sometimes it is a good tool to narrow to the specific research that you've done instead of just sort of jumping into it really quickly and then the reader gets a little lost at the beginning. So it's sort of up to you whether you have this background paragraph or not. I just always tell students, look at what you're trying to prove, look at the type of research and the level of research that you're presenting, and then just ask yourself, if a regular academic reader saw that, would it make sense to them? And if you feel like you need to bridge some gaps in there, you can have like a small little background paragraph to set up the information. You can also jump straight in to sort of giving some setup data, some statistics, case studies, something like that, if you don't want to do a background paragraph. So that's up to you. Once you sort of get the reader enticed and ready to receive the specific research, then you're going to build your reasons why, because again, you are trying to convince the reader of your point of view. This is not an opinion paper, but since you're writing it, you're sort of making the choice of what position will be taken in the paper. So please don't confuse an opinion paper where you're going to say, I think, or I believe, or in my opinion. None of that should be in this paper, but it is, since you're the writer, since you're the person who researched and developed and are implementing the topic, you are making some choices here. So you will be including reasoning to convince the reader to believe your point of view that you're presenting in the paper. So this just sort of shows 3 reasons. I'm not requiring that you have 3 reasons. I would say 2 at a minimum, maybe 4 at a maximum is a good way to look at it. Every topic's going to be different, and so that's why I don't want to put too many specifics on you, because your topic may need an extra reason, or you may only have 2 good reasons that are really meaty and good, and you don't need the 3rd one. So I sort of leave that up to the students. Just remember that for each of your body paragraphs, you need a topic sentence with a main idea. That main idea will tell the reader what is to come in that paper or in that paragraph. And then you'll give the supporting evidence in the paragraph to prove that main idea. The main idea, as with everything in the paper, does circle back to that thesis statement. So the whole point of you writing this is to prove that thesis statement and to convince your reader that the point of view that you've taken is valid. Okay, so remember in class we talked about how to properly present research, and we're not going to just plop in quotes. We're not going to just give an idea and then skip to the next idea. We looked at the sandwich model in class, where you start with one piece of bread. The ingredients in the middle of the sandwich are sort of your specific details, and then the bottom piece of bread is your explanation, and tying that back to the main idea of the paragraph and the overall thesis of the paper. So every point of evidence that you include in this paper should be a 3-step process. You're going to introduce the idea, you're going to cite something like a direct quote, or you're going to paraphrase the quote, or you're going to give a fact of some sort, and then you're going to explain it in relation to the thesis statement and the particular main idea for that paper. Again, if you're having trouble sort of like keeping up with all these steps, if you go back to that process writing unit of study, I have those PowerPoints in there, and I have a lot of slides that sort of speak to how to organize your paragraphs in your essay and how to organize the essay. I will also have some student samples available that you can review, and you'll be doing the peer review, so you'll have some chances to talk with your classmates about, proper organization and those kinds of things. Once you have proven your thesis with your evidence in the paper, before you end, since this is an argumentative essay, you need to include a refutation. The classic way to do that is to concede something from the opposing viewpoint. That's sort of a good faith move, so that your reader knows that you understand that there is another side to this idea that you're putting in your essay. And then you want to immediately come back and show, you want to refute that. So you're showing the opposing viewpoint, and I would say you could just do one reasoning from the other side, and then come back and remind the reader, why your side is valid and important. So I gave some examples of this in class. And if you're not quite sure how to do it, just ask, and I'll be glad to go over it with your particular topic, because this will be different for everyone, with, depending on what topic they've chosen to research and what they're writing about, and also what their thesis is. So a lot of times you need to look at your thesis and say, well, what would be the direct opposite of this idea? What would be the opposing viewpoint of this? And whatever the most obvious thing is, the biggest reason why. Oftentimes it's money. Sometimes it can be just, people aren't going to buy into it for some reason. Um, that's usually what you need to bring in as your concession, and then you refute it back to say, well, yes, this is true, but this side of the argument is valid because, and that's your refutation. Then, and we've talked about this in class as well, when you write your conclusion, just look back at your introduction. The easiest way to do a conclusion is to sort of flip your introduction upside down, start with your thesis and rephrase it, and then you want to just broaden out to a final thought. Conclusions do not need to be that detailed. Again, you do want to remind the reader what the thesis was and what was proven, and just restate your thesis, but you're going to have to change up the phrasing. Don't do it word for word. And then you just want to broaden out to a final thought, something for them to take away from the essay as they continue to think about it. So a good conclusion is maybe 3 to 4 sentences. It's not very detailed in the sense of you're adding. You should never add new information, add research, or anything like that, because you've already proven everything in the essay. This explains the refutation here. We've already gone over things that I wanted you to steer clear of with your topic, and you guys have already sort of chosen your topic. Here are the main requirements for the essay. It needs to be 3 to 5 pages. It's important that you don't go below 3 pages and that you don't go over 5 pages. So you couldn't have 6.5 pages and you couldn't have 2.5 pages, but anything 3 to 5, you're good to go. Don't fall into the idea of more is better, because if you've proven everything in 4 pages and you have a solid argument there, you're good. You don't have to add anything else. Padding it is not a good idea, because sometimes that just appears to be frivolous and non-purposeful. So just make sure you've proven your point, and as long as it's within 3 to 5 pages, you're good. MLA is our formatting style. You can look this up in the Little Seagull, as well as the Field Guide textbook. And then I'm going to have some links for you as well in Blackboard. But with MLA, you need a double space. You need to have 12-point font and Times New Roman. Your paragraphs need to be indented, and this is just a classic paragraph. You need to use the left side margins. So I know as I've graded some of the My Name assignments, some students centered the entire essay, much like a title, and that's not okay. So you have to have the proper margins. You need 3 credible sources that are scholarly. You need to write in third person, so you cannot use first person or second person. Again, we went over this the first week of classes, and this is explained in the PowerPoints that I showed. First person would be I, me, us, we, and second person is you, and you should not have any of that in your essay unless it is part of a direct quote. If it is protected by quotation marks and it was printed somewhere in one of your sources, it's fine if you have first or second person, because that person may have been speaking or that person may have used that in their own writing, but you cannot use it in your phrasing. So your phrasing has to be third person. Try to take out contractions. That's a little casual for a formal essay. And review your grammar and punctuation. And if you don't feel super confident with that, you can always use Grammarly, which is a free resource that you can download into your computer. And we also have the Academic Skills Center, and they have tutors. And we have the service for you to send in your paper to be reviewed by one of the tutors at the Academic Skills Center. It's the JCC Writing Portal, so you're welcome to use that as well. So that's the nuts and bolts of the essay. If you have any questions, let me know, and I look forward to reading all of your papers.